I mean, Bono Vox, good voice,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So you know, he's using song interchangeably. Throughout all of this. And I mean, the band has traditionally said live is where we live.
Mhm.
Well, you know, you're doing your song live. So it just feels like, you know, you're taking 40 years of career since Pitchy's 13 tracks plus the bonus material.
You went a little Skypey there, but I think we got the gist of your message. But speaking of 13 tracks, 13 is the 13th track on the album. There's a light. Sherry, you want to lead us off on this one?
Yeah, this is the bookend to close out the main part of the album. You've got the obvious colors, career.
If anybody happens to be watching, we're just testing the stream quality, I guess, on the old using OBS instead of Mimo Live, just to see if there's any dropped frames or anything that's happening, or if it's just Wi-Fi issues maybe that happened during the recording of the YouTube program earlier this evening. So nothing too exciting to see, but
Since Pitchy's
you can see a little bit
just
of my.
feels like, you know, you're taking 40 years of career since Pitchy's 13 tracks plus the bonus. Like, you know, you're doing your song live. So it just feels like, you know, you're taking 40 years of career since.
Maybe there, I think we got your. The mouse is showing up on the stream. Oops, wrong. Not loop back. Anyway, let me know if the mouse isn't showing up. Well, Skypey there, I think we got the gist of your message. But speaking of 13 tracks, 13 is the 13th track on the. Speaking of. So when I edit the YouTube podcast, speaking of 13 tracks, 13 is the 13th. I'm not looking to really spend a lot of time cutting stuff out. Just any obvious audio issues off this one.
Yeah, this is
or long gaps between one person talking and the next person talking.
the journey that he's been on at the end, you know, with all that darkness, biblically, that light, you follow YouTube's, you know, story biblically, that light, you follow, you know, with all that darkness.
I'm also listening at 50% speed, so it's twice as fast, which will sound like.
He's been on at the end, you know, with all that darkness. You follow U2's, story biblically, that light, you have to hold on to your faith. And Bono has said that on question of faith. And this is his, coming around and saying, I might have almost lost it, but I didn't lose it. And his mom, I think about as well. There's a lot more to it than just number.
Yeah, I hadn't connected the age parts thing too, which is just
yeah, that's the a number.
Yeah, I hadn't connected the age part.
Yeah, that's the age of your.
And generally, I try to edit myself out as much as possible.
He was 13.
Yeah. Ian, any thoughts on 13?
Well, speaking of Beth, I forgot to say something about Love is Bigger Than Anything in Its Way. We'll get back to that. But I like the use of that chorus so much.
13.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Beth, I forgot to say something about Love is Bigger Than Anything in Its Way. We'll get back to that. But I like the use of that chorus so much more in 13 than I do in song.
I'm cutting that out because I know Ian mentions it again later, so I can keep it out.
As contrasts to each other.
And if you use the word song and life interchangeably, because I was born to sing for you, going back to Magnificent. If you were given the song life and for aha moment.
An interesting little U2 trivia. If you search on Google for U2 lyric and then the number 13, one of the first
aha moment.
An interesting little U2. Should I leave that in? Trivia. If you search on Google for U2 lyric and then the number 13, lyric/13 for some reason, I think maybe in whatever their CMS it's coming up. So just throw that in the conspiracy pile for why it's
alphabetically maybe.
Yeah, perfect. And you could happily be complete, I guess, sing it. But is there a connection there that you think, aside from love obviously being a thing and what they're sort of Ordinary Love? I don't have which version. I'll write down time codes for when we talked about stuff for bookmarks. I guess you can't see that. Ordinary. I can't spell right now. It's too late at night. For the bookmarks in the app, it's called, but keep referencing it. They've included it.
Well, it's the extraordinary mix that made it onto the album.
Right.
I think that they wanted it to have a home track for the Mandela film, for an album to put it on. This would be it.
All right, and then not Ordinary Love. Sorry, that's what we discussed. Book of Your Heart is track 14. Ian, are you? There's been a lot of Book of Your Heart is track 14. Ian, are you? Book of Your Heart is track 14. Ian, are you? Sorry, I don't think that's getting. Yeah, that doesn't get thrown in there. I don't know how I'd do that. I guess I could just capture the whole window, but then whatever else I switch to would be on the stream. So, Book of Your Heart is track 14. Ian, are you? There's been a lot of fans loving Slap to You Land.
Can I actually take a time out and go back to something that we talked about earlier?
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to disrupt the flow. Beth Nabby posted a poll. Where she said love is, and then the options were like love is blindness, love is bigger than it's bigger than us. Can I actually take us that love is not what you're thinking? Remember to mention that earlier.
That's fine.
You heard it.
Passages.
Yeah, I know a little bit off coming from them, but act.
Yeah, there's a darkness to it that isn't there on the rest of the album. Almost an edge, as it were. Except edge probably isn't very prevalent in that song. All right, and finally, well, not finally, but it's finally for me anyways on the version I listened to, is Lights of Home, the St. Peter's string version. Nobody picked this as a jump out. Obviously, the song itself is the same, but the strings is a string-heavy version, and it reminds me a lot of what's the Radiohead song?
Burn the Witch?
Yes, St. Peter's string version. Well, not finally, but it's finally for me anyway. All right. Lights of Home, St. All right, and finally, Lights of Home.
It feels like this is the version that should be reserved for special occasions, like when they have the full orchestra for Original of the Species. This is the version where if they have to do some like gala or some special recorded performance of the song, this is the version they should play. Which
allegedly they did play it with the BBC orchestra that's coming out in whatever that is next week, I think it is. It's with this song. But Jerry, any thoughts on Lights of Home?
Well, just that we gladly allow Bono to tell me that I'm wrong on that if he decides to come onto the podcast someday. One other thing that I forgot to mention about 13, if you notice how I've taken it to be.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that makes perfect sense.
And that's what we'll close on. Maybe does someone want to mention the Kygo remix? I don't want to be completely dismissive, but someone wrote.
I love it, and I want the Kygo remix live in 2018.
We'll see you at the rave. In closing maybe for this episode, the thoughts and the depth of analysis that either puts you off some of this kind of discussion or you really love this kind of discussion. But I would love to know how much of it is in the same way that other bands, you overanalyze stuff with Led Zeppelin, or what's this doing here, and why is this on this album, and all that kind of stuff, and on this album cover, and all the kind of things like that. Whereas a band, how much of that is intentional, and how much of it was a happy accident, how much of it was divinely inspired, or whatever. And just to be able to put this to Edge or Bono and say, okay, listen to this episode and tell us, like, are you legitimately putting all this depth and thought into it? Is it someone else helping you sort of connect all the dots? I guess Sanctuary, like, that could be very intentional if you're listening to a podcast about their mythology. So, any closing thoughts on Songs of Experience before we wrap up? You're out of words.
Go ahead, Ian.
I think I said it last time, but I don't know that it's going to be ever my favorite album, or even maybe one of my top.
Any closing thoughts on Songs? Put closing thoughts. Bookmark 127. Songs of Experience before we wrap up.
Full steam again, and I really enjoy that feeling.
Sherry?
It's their finest works. Having that chat with people.
It makes me excited, but to have some of the, I think, is a great way of closing and summing up. And we'll be back on the podcast. There'll be one more review of sorts. It'll be with some different folks you haven't heard here. So, Ian, hear about Songs of Experience. Where can we be found on the internet?
I'm at Ian P. Ryan.
And Sherry, how are you?
At U2Com Sherry, as always.
And I'm Chris on Twitter. I'm not sure. I don't get the reference. Anyways, sorry. How said like the veggie? I'm not sure. I don't get the reference. Anyways, sorry. I shouldn't look at the chat room. I'm trying to close out a show. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next time. If you feel like you're so inclined on the iTunes, and thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next time. If you feel like you're so inclined on the iTunes store, or the Google Play Store, wherever you happen to be in the world that you're listening to this podcast, you want to give us a rating, a review, helps get the word out about the show. Our biggest competition, I think, is that other U2 show. Really, but
they're famous actors. We're just volunteers and soccer moms. Come on now.
Chris, if we maybe diverge them to more little mini shows, we'd do better.
You mean 2-hour epic operas about an album aren't what the people want? Yeah, so we'll have to come up with our own shtick that way. But anyways, feel free to throw us a rating or review in wherever you happen to listen to podcasts. It would be much appreciated. It helps get the word out about the show, and share with your friends, share with your family. And thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. Bye. And then the rest of it is stuff that's just for live listeners, deleted and gone. And then just copy and paste. Outro music. Reverse the fade. It's not a competition really, but
they're famous actors. We're just volunteers and soccer moms.
Operas about an album aren't what the people want. Yeah, so we'll have to come up with our own shtick that way. But anyways, feel free to throw us a rating or review in wherever you have to listen to podcasts. It would be much appreciated. It helps get the word out about the show, and share with your friends, share with your family. And thank you for listening. We have a great day. Bye. Good enough. Throw a little noise removal on my track too, just to make sure it's not.
With that auto tune.
So normally, just by way of like Ian's audio here and Sherry's is a little bit louder, probably because of something I had set in Mimo Live, the software we used to record with. Ian's was a little low, Sherry's was louder, or she was talking louder into her mic, and Ian's was quieter, talking away from his mic, whatever it was. If I turn on, you can see sort of where, you can pretty well pick out where
through vocal
Ian's talking and then
which is
Sherry's talking. If I had more time and it wasn't already 10 after 11, I might go through and adjust levels so that Ian's volume comes up a bit, to be more level with Sherry's. But some of that will hopefully be fixed in running it through an app I use called Ophonic to level it out a bit. And machine-wise, saves me a bunch of time and sounds close to good, but would be, better to be handcrafted. There's nobody out there watching right now, but if you are watching this later, I was just trying to do a test of the stream. We're using OBS now, streaming software instead of, so if this works, full screen video, lower third, coming soon. Just do some switching to test the video. Streamlabs chat box. Let's see if that. Apparently it's not connected. There you go. Just testing out the Streamlabs. All right, on that note, I'm going to turn off the stream and go to bed. Have a good night, wherever you are in the world.